Hello, Facebook friends. This video is going to be, about addiction. The reality of addiction. I was on the internet today, and I was like, checking out different political sites, and I came across an article that said that Connecticut is now ranked number 7 in all the country of the most addicts. They said that over 100,000 citizens in Connecticut is in some form of treatment. That's a lot of people. In the rank 7 out of 50 states, there's an issue here in Connecticut as well as in other states, but mainly here in Connecticut. As I'm pretty sure most of you have figured out and who know. And if you don't know, now you know. Well, I am also an addict. I'm just coming back. I have 5.5 months clean. Just coming back from 13 months clean, being clean and sober, and it was a difficult road to get back to a place of sobriety. To a place where my mind is clear. I could focus on my future. I could focus on goals. I could focus on developing healthy relationships and getting back to my church and my the development of my spirituality. It was difficult, man, because when you active, it's like your brain is basically being held captive to a substance, an inanimate object. If I threw some drugs down on the ground and stood there and stared at it, that drug can do nothing to me until I put value in it, until I, take some form of action to bring it into my system, bring it into, my existence, man, and just like completely throw me off track. It was difficult. After 13 months of being clean and developing all these things I spoke of earlier, life happened. The struggles of life, struggles of the job, stress, relationships, money problems, legal problems, children problems, and even problems existing in the church, because not even in church can you find absolute peace from the chaoticness of this world, the insanity of this world. And then when you're an addict, it just makes everything that everybody else has to deal with, it just amplifies it by, 5. So it comes to a point where one gets like, I'll just speak for me, and I'll just say, me. It was like I had developed all these skills, and for a while, it worked out very well for me. Things happened in my life that I never thought would happen. Well, at some point, I thought that these things would come into play, but not as quickly and as efficiently as it did. I had a lot of people in the church community that, that was supportive of me, gave me good advice. It was very nice. It was very uplifting every Sunday, being lifted by, being a part of a spiritual community where we had like one focus in mind, and that was just to like give God our praise and responsibility for the church. Those are some of the things that drove me, but there were also some of the things that, took me off balance. Because when I went back into treatment, I had to really think long and hard about what was it that caused me to drift off course? What was it that caused me to go back to trade in this good life, for the insanity of active addiction? And and no one makes that rational choice to go back. Sometimes, there are external forces that, kind of maneuver you slowly but surely back into that course. And I know a lot of people talk about personal responsibility, and don't get me wrong, I think that personal responsibility is a big thing, and I think it's valid. And one who says that is right in saying it. But that's not the only thing. That's not the only cause for addiction, because even willpower can only take you so far. Willpower is, a function that we employ to control the desires of the flesh. The flesh is a funny thing because it has all these desires from the moment we were born, and the doctor slapped us on our butt. We had these uncomfortable, negative moments, like desires that demanded to be remedied. From changing of a diaper to wanting a bottle, to wanting that toy on the shelf, to wanting that girl to like you, to wanting to be popular, to wanting to participate in activities that aren't necessarily healthy for you, downright reckless, but we do it because it is our desire. It is the desire of the flesh. And it's just hard, keeping the flesh at bay. And that's one of the reasons why, spirituality is so important, because it helps you, develop the brain, to the point in which it can be the executive of the body. That's the Holy Spirit. When we are born, we are born into the natural world, and we have a natural spirit, and we have to go through a process called baptism in order to have the second birth, and that second birth is when we are endowed by the Spirit of God, because God said, I am a spirit, and those who worship me must worship me in spirit. And so I find that in my sobriety, I have complete control of my faculties and my thinking. I don't have that obsessive compulsive thinking disorder. You get past that post-acute withdrawal stage where you're dealing with all these like immediate, feelings and emotions that follow, active use. Constantly being agitated, constantly, being, people irritating you, not feeling right, not feeling like, like you want to explore, positive options in your life. You just basically thinking about how can I get past this uncomfortable moment in my life the quickest way possible. And so when you go into recovery, it's like learning to deal with these complex emotions and learning to just ride it out, go from this to this. And it's very difficult. But once that skill is achieved, it's very empowering, man. It's very uplifting to know that when you wake up in the morning and you set out to do something, that you can trust that the executive in your brain is going to make sure that these plans come to fruition. And but getting back to my active addiction, it was hard being part of a community and then all of a sudden being cut off from the pack. I like to call it, it was like it was a teachable moment for me, knowing everything that I know and then being in the situation I was in is very frustrating. And then not having the mental capacity to get back to there. It's not something you can just click off, especially for people like me when basically the addiction has to run its course in order for me to get to a very low point to where I know that some type of change has to take place because the only alternative is death. But thank God that my God had not given up on me, even though there are a few of you who did. But it's during these times that you really learn, you really find out who is really there for you, because some people are just in your life for a season, some people are just in your life, to attach to you to get from one point to another, like as if almost as if a frog hopping from one lily pad to the other. But then there are some people who stick. Pastor Watson, I have a lot of respect and love for the man because he was the only one that dealt. He was there when I was doing good. He was there when things got rocky, and he was there when things just completely fell apart. He came looking for me several times when I checked myself into a hospital, to deal with the mental part, the psychological part, basically to see if there's a chemical counterpart that I needed to address. He came to visit me. I called him. The very next day he was there. He sat down and he talked with me, and we read scripture and we prayed. unfortunately, I wasn't ready to come out of the woods yet. And so several months later, after a brief time in jail, I ended up back in rehabilitation, back in treatment. And I called upon him again, and a few days later he was out there, and we sat and we talked, and he gave me spiritual counseling. You know, and that's just so beautiful. That's a beautiful thing to know that people are in your life, and they're not just there for like lip service. They're not just there to bask in your spotlight. You know, they're gonna be there through the good times and the hard times. That's character. That's integrity. That is the Spirit of God. And so that's bring me to, like, you know, the spirituality. It's difficult because you got to get back into the groups. You got to get back into the AA community. But you are surrounded by so many people who are fixated and totally convinced about this secondary spirituality. You know, the kind of spirituality that doesn't include God. You know, God-free spirituality. You know, they love that. You know, I can't get through a meeting without someone stressing how important it is to make your higher power a doorknob. But you know what? That's another video. And trust me, it might be another video. But I just wanted to make this video to let everybody know that I'm back on track. You know, I'm in a I got to obtain the sober house, and I'll be moving into it tomorrow. You know, my relationship is very healthy and strong, and Kimberly has been so supportive. It's just amazing. But you know what? You can't have a testimony unless you've been put through a test. You can't bring someone into safety unless you were also in harm's way. And I plan on redeeming myself and using, you know, the adversity that God had allowed me to survive, you know, to help others who are struggling in addiction. You know, and addiction is not only a chemical addiction. You know, people got a lot of addictions out there, man. It's just that some are acceptable, socially acceptable, and some aren't. You know, a lot of people believe that addiction is about moral, you know, lack of morality. And people who know a thing or two about addiction, you know, and have some wisdom knows that it has nothing to do with morality. You know, it's an allergy. You know, some people can drink 1 can of beer, some people have to have 10. You know, it's the way the body perceives it. It's the way the body processes it. You know, it's about your tolerance, your genetic level. You know, it's just a very complex and difficult situation to deal with, especially when you want to gravitate towards spirit, but the flesh is constantly going against the Spirit of God. But you know what? God brought me through it, and today I'm in a great place. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I appreciate all the support of those who gave me support. To those who didn't, you know, I still love you. And if something's wrong with you, don't be afraid to call Big Kev. I'll be there. Peace.